what looks like a tropical kind of relaxed setting, so it's good. He's down under, of course, and so it's a beautiful summer for him as we here in the northern hemisphere prepare for the
Hellacious winter.
hellacious winter. So Matt Ray, making us I
It's
don't know,
not
Matt.
gonna be.
Maybe that's a good pre-show. It's like, have you gotten used to? I mean, you've been there a long time now. Does it still seem weird that November, December is summer, or are you fully
Still weird.
switched over? Is that
Nope, still weird. Yeah.
um,
I mean, the idea of it being November and people are starting to come. Like I live in a kind of touristy area near the beach, and so I was like, oh, I'm just gonna pop down to the restaurant, get some takeout, and like it was they were like not doing deliveries because they had so much business because of tourists, and I was like, oh, come on, tourist.
Well, maybe we're gonna talk a little. We're gonna open the show here in a second with. You know what we should do, Matt? I should tell everybody in the Slack we're recording. But for a second, before we get officially recording, Matt, I was gonna ask you what age. So I assume you and your wife, sort of like very ingrained in the American schedule of at least or not American, Northern Hemisphere schedule. Now, like, do your kids have any of your kids like adjusted to the point where they're like, no,
No.
like December,
No.
like even your youngest has been there
more than half his life, but
I would say the formative years, some formative years, right? Like,
oh, they're all formative when you're young.
True. Like, I mean, I guess he would have the least memories of the United States, but I guess it's like, I don't know. But he's still
we go back enough. Yeah.
That he's like, huh?
Yeah. It's not that, exotic, like going back to the States.
Well, not as everybody, I guess this is dumb. This is the dumbest question I can possibly ask, but I guess everybody in Australia feels like just the opposite. Do they feel like it's so weird that December is winter, or like everything? Have we, and as the Northern Hemisphere people, have we just pushed it down on them that like, even though it's not their normal pattern, we've made them think it's the normal pattern because the Northern Hemisphere doesn't have like significantly more people.
Oh yeah.
I think it's always like the South Hemisphere is always just underrepresented in everything, right? We're always like, yeah, whatever, you Southern Hemisphere people, your opinion doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, we just got Graham over in the board. I know Graham's from a town near Sydney and lives in Tokyo now, so he thinks it's weird.
All right. Well, I feel like we haven't done enough.
There you go. Straight from the horse's mouth.
It feels like we should, as Northern Hemisphere people, we should just, come on, Southern Hemisphere people. It's like daylight savings time. It's like, come on, people. Let's just get over that. So, all right. Well, I'll ask further dumb questions about Australia in the opens to these videos coming forward. Although maybe someone can leave a list in the comment. Like, I would be interested in the YouTube comments. Like, does everybody in Australia think it's really weird for it to be, cold in December? I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some people that are like, no. What about this? The Christmas holidays. What about like the Santa thing? Does it not all have like is it not like kind of weird?
It's super weird, right?
The North Pole is showing up at a beach. Like, isn't that even in the realm of the imagination? Isn't Australia sort of like, this is kind of weird? Like, this is sort of like kind of a weird thing.
We just live with it. Yeah. I mean, everyone just kind of acknowledges like, isn't this weird? People talking about Yule logs and it's 90 degrees outside, and you're just like, no, we're not having a fire. We don't want a bunch of we're gonna have a barbecue on the beach. That's what Christmas is all about.
Well, Graham is telling us here, you haven't experienced Christmas until you see Santa surfing. That's true.
Well, yeah, I think I pull out those photos every year.
Every year, it never gets old though. It really doesn't
get old.
I am sort of always though.
Yeah, Christmas caroling and the the cricket, rugby, cricket, whatever. Anyway, and the pitch they have here in town, they have a Christmas caroling outdoors, and it's all like beach blankets, and it's just a lovely.
It just feels wrong, man. It just feels wrong.
It's totally wrong.
It feels wrong. Like, I don't know. Like, I know I need to be more open to this, but it feels wrong. I just I can't get over it. So, all right, Matt. Well, for everyone, we're gonna announce this in the show here, but everyone, this is the big reveal. And you know what? For those that are going that watch us in the stream, like we're actually gonna show you live. If we can figure out how to show a screenshot, we'll see. At the end, we'll show you a live shot. Maybe not live. We'll show you a picture of Matt Ray's
Yeah,
keyboard and the
don't
setup.
don't put me on
That's
don't put me
that's
on
the
the
whole
spot
thing.
for a live thing. My
I know
desk
we
is,
can't. We
like,
can barely
covered in
record this
papers
podcast,
and
much less like do anything live. But like maybe we'll find a way to show everybody the picture of the keyboard. So stay tuned. That's what you're going to get at this. It's like you're going to get a little vegetables with a little Azure Ignite talk, and then you're going to get a big dessert. It's like big dessert. Think of your most
I
favorite
think you might
dessert.
be overselling this keyboard.
I mean, we can't oversell Mount Ray reveal. This is incredible. So, all right, Matt, are you ready for the show
I
to
just
begin?
I just sent you like the marketing picture of the keyboard. So
All right, we'll see. We'll see if I can actually do it at
yeah,
the end of the show. Now I've
so
really called myself out. We're going to spend like
yeah,
5 minutes at the
you've
end of the
got
show
the
trying to share a desktop, and it's not going to work. So we'll see. All right, you ready?
see,
Ready?
somebody's already trying for the spoilers. Can I lift it? Not one-handed.
Oh, hey! You have to stay to the whole show, people. That's what we're coming from. No more spoilers. No more. It's like I want you to ruin Christmas.
Oh yeah.
All right. You ready? Ready?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Matt, as you may know, I spend my days working on migrations and thinking a lot about different migrations. And we had a huge milestone migration here in my household over the weekend. My son turned 13. So I created what I termed a internet emancipation list because upon turning 13, most of the services granted him access to more things, right? There's just a whole bunch of stuff they can have. So I was excited by this simply because it meant I could be less involved in having to approve things.
But don't you want that involvement?
Nah, a lot of stuff we
So
have
you've
passed.
only got one kid. It's like each
We have
child
blown
was like a
by.
downgrading in how involved I was with their internet.
I'm just saying, like, we have like already come up with so many workarounds through these various restrictions. Even I can't keep up with how many workarounds we come up with. So it's just great. Finally, you're 13. You can just have access to like many of these things, and we don't have to like have all these weird workarounds that come up. So I'm going to rate the services in their migrations and how they went. And I want you, because you've been through this process at least twice, maybe 3 times, and I want to see if my data, if you will, stacks up with yours. So first and foremost was getting the Apple. So he got an iPhone. We officially, converted over, gave him a real phone. I'm going to say the Apple, 5 out of 5, 5 being the best. Everything worked. Literally, he just put in his username and password. Off he went. The thing set up. And most importantly, I didn't have to be involved at all. It just like absolutely was the perfect migration.
Well,
Now,
and as you cross the age thresholds, it just kind of happens without you noticing. And so, like, when my son hit 18 or whatever, he was like, "Oh, I don't have to ask you for that anymore." And I was just like, "Oh."
yeah, no, it's just like it's great. So like Apple, 5 out of 5. Can't. I mean, again, too, it was also kind of a birthday gift. So it's just like they figured it out. Now,
Yeah.
T-Mobile, that's my preferred carrier here. Now, what I wanted to do was I needed to take a phone number from an Apple Watch. I needed to transfer it to the phone, right? Which I guess, as I learned, that involves releasing the IMEI number, which is the SIM card, I guess. You have to release it, then you have to transfer it. But then I wanted to keep the watch activated, at least for a while. And that required a whole new telephone number, even though I didn't want the phone number, because I guess every device, even if it's not really a phone, it has a phone number. So this required basically a 45-minute call. And and then the whole process of releasing a SIM, I don't know if you've ever done that. Like it's like you have to like wait like 10 minutes.
Wait.
Mm-hmm.
What if you already have the phone and then you get a watch? Do you have to go get another phone number for the watch?
What it's going to do, if you have the phone and you get a watch, behind the scenes, that watch is going to have a phone number, even if you never use that phone number, because the way all of this stuff works is it still is tying everything to phone numbers. Now, the case I ran into was, in most cases, what you described, most people are going to get the watch phone number and never use it because that's not their number, right? So it's just sort of something that sits in the background. But and I will, a quick aside, we got my son a watch like when he was in, I think, 5th grade, 4th, 5th grade. Worked out extremely well. We were very worried about it, but it was great because he could
But
call
that's all
us.
he had, right?
That's all we had, right? But it worked out great because he could call us, do some texting, and we could keep track of them with Find My. But I think the unusual use case is going from like, I have a watch with a phone number, and that's the phone number I want to keep. Transferring that to the phone, that's sort of like not an edge case, but it's unusual, right? It was like, oh, wait a minute. We have to release the SIM card from the watch, and then the watch has to get another phone number. I'm like, I definitely don't want another phone number. They're like, well, it's not really a phone number, but it is a phone number.
But you'll
So
pay for it.
yeah, you have to pay for it. And then they charged me for the phone number, and I didn't really want the number. So the T-Mobile thing, it worked. It just was a 45-minute call, and it's sort of like I had to walk through many things, and the person was good. They got it done. So I'm only going 3.8 out of 5. So it's like, 4 is good, 5 is fantastic, 3 is like acceptable. So I'm not so much mad at anyone at T-Mobile. I'm sort of mad at the whole process here. It's like I just feel like the phone number should just be shared between the watch and the phone. Like, I don't know. I don't care. Like, I know why they were explaining to me why it can't be done. I don't care. That's not my problem. You work it out. You work it out, T-Mobile and GSM. So that one was okay. Now, Google was interesting because they sent me, the parent, an email about a week before. It says, hey, your son's about to turn 13. He'll be given more options. He'll get this email to allow him to, quote unquote, take control of his Google account. And I'm like, fantastic. They send me the email like a week before. That's what we want. Come up, weekend of his 13th birthday, no email is sent, right? And then a couple days go by, still no email is sent. So we end up, and of course, like, you can't contact Google. Like, there's no, you're not contacting Google. So of course, we then Googled a bunch of different things, like how to get the link. Because if we could just get the link, and we finally found the link on some obscure site where it was like, click here, that then allowed him to take control of the account, which is what we want. He walked through and he got it. So again, it's like, I don't know what to say. It's like, because because this is the part I did have to get involved in. I was like, is it in your spam folder? Is it in? He's like, I checked. I'm looking at it. And to my knowledge, this email has never come. And this is what's crazy about it, is they sent me, the parent, the email, and they don't send the like, here's the link you can use to do it. So I don't know. I mean, again, I guess not an edge case, but like, whatever reason this email got lost or it hasn't gotten sent. So the best I can do is 3.5 out of 5. It did eventually work. We got there, but it was just a lot of manual Googling to do it. Now, Amazon, I don't know if you can do this down your way. In Amazon, you can convert a child account to a teen account, so they can order.
That's happened. Yeah, that's happened too. Yeah.
All right. I went in very easily. It reminds me a lot of the AWS console when you get in there, because it has like different checkboxes. It was like, wow, this is like literally the UI. I guess we should say
this is the UI they shipped with.
I was like, not good. I mean, just not good, right? Just so many things you can click. And it was like, I just want, it really reminds you of the AWS, because you're like, I just need to give him everything. So I finally figured that out. It could be done online. And then you pick a parent payment method. That's what you say. Can they buy things? And you can set like a limit. I was like, yes. Yeah. And I set a parental payment method. So of course that all works. He goes in to buy something. He clicks on the parent pay method, and like literally, and you hit submit, and nothing happened. The page just reloads with the same box, just reloads. Again, Amazon, zero way. You cannot contact them. They're just like, there's no way to contact them. And so I was like, so then we ran through a test. I sent him a gift card of like $20, sent him to his account. Sure enough, that works fine. So the parental thing. So I was like, I'm not sure how it's going to fix. So I just waited 2 days, did nothing. And then I checked again, and it finally worked. And I have no idea why. So I don't know if it was like, it could have been on the payment side. The payment thought it was maybe looking like a fraud. So maybe it got flagged, which is fine. Like if it just said, hey, this is like, this has been rejected. But it was just the UI was like, I mean, I really felt like I was in the AWS console. It's just like, it's just reloading and telling you the same thing. And there's not, you know what I mean? You're like, well,
oh no.
Because in AWS, you go to the console and be like, let me look at the log. But there's like, I mean, you have nothing at that point. So best I can do, 3.2 out of 5 there. And then from the final one, I'll wrap on this, was we have USA as our banking. As a teen, he gets access to actually see his accounts, which again, fantastic. How much money do I have, Dad? Don't have to deal with that anymore. It's like, go log in. You can see exactly what kind of money is in your bank account. Manage the money. That worked pretty well, pretty fast. Then, of course, because he's young, he's like Gen Z, right? All these kids, like he's like, hey, can I just put my debit card on Apple Pay? I'm like, sure, yeah, just do it. That'll be better. You can't keep track of the debit card anyway. So goes in, rejected a million different times. So finally we get on the phone and I made him do it. He gets on the phone. I'm like, welcome to being an adult. Like we're on the
Oh
phone with
man.
USAA. We're doing the hardcore.
Wow, that is some tough parenting right there.
Well, no, but I'm
I
like,
still do the calls for like
I'm
almost
there. Like,
everything in
listen,
my
it was on
family.
speaker. We were doing it together. We were doing the
Okay.
thing. So I
Okay.
was just like, but I was like, hey, this is it. You got to explain what it is. And so it was great because he got round tripped. He got first sent to the credit card people. They're like, no, 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 this isn't a credit card thing. It's a debit card thing. Then he got sent to the debit card people. Then the debit card people sent him back to the credit card people. And so I was counseling. I was like, okay, here we got to explain to them that like you've been round tripped. And so he did that.
Yeah.
Then he gets back into the debit card people. And then they finally tell him, well, the problem is you're not old enough. This is only available at 14, which
Yeah, I
again,
ran into that. Yeah.
which is only like, there is no online information. Like if someone had said that, like, you can't do this till you're 14, we would have understood, but there was zero information.
Well, yeah.
Only available via the phone.
So my son, I finally got him a debit card last month, and then he turned 14 this month. And so while he was getting the debit card, they were like, you can use this physically, but you can't use it for Apple Pay. And I was like, thank you. They're like, come back next month and you can have it. And so, I knew the answer to where you were headed with that, but so I would say,
wow. So that's
my bank's going to get, 4.8 or something. Right.
One, fantastic. Let's give him a shout out. What bank is that? Like what?
Well, I'm always hesitant to because it's
okay.
Westpac.
You don't have to say it. It's fine.
Yeah, no, it's Westpac.
Okay.
The branch was very good.
Whatever, 5 stars, because just giving the information is what you're looking for. Like, and I guess because obviously you're in a different country, this must be like an Apple thing, right? Or something.
No, it's totally an Apple thing. Yeah,
because 14. Because I don't understand. Like,
well, because I'd already put what's weird is I'd already put my debit card onto his Apple Pay.
Right. Yeah, so you know that can work, right? And
then I know that can work, but it couldn't be his. Yeah.
Well, this is another thought I have about this whole process. It's like, in the end, generally it did work, right? And there was some pain there. Well, one, all of these sites, I feel like every one of them should have just a web page, like your kid turns 13, because they're close. Like Google and Amazon, they have things, but it's like just a quick like FAQ, or like when things don't work, right? Like here's how, like, it just seems like so many kids are, this happens millions of times a year. Like it seems like it is not an edge case, just a quick one pager. Here's what you should do. Here's what you should do if things don't go perfectly, right? That is one thing I would ask for all of them.
Man.
And then 2, it's like, I was thinking about this idea of like, can we get away? I want to propose something, these cliffs around birthdays, right? It's like, on this date, you turn this age, you can do this. It's like, now when kids are like infants, age is very important. Like a 2-month-old versus 6-month-old, whatever, right? There's huge differences. But my proposal is this, is like, we should get away from the birthday. We should just be like the year that you turn X. You know what I mean? Just come January 1.
No.
It's
that leads to madness. You're talking about like South Korea style.
Right. But I'm just like, January 1st, it's like, if you're going to turn a milestone age in that year, you can just, you're that age. You can just do whatever it is. You can, like, is 16 here, get a car.
I mean, that's how the schools work here. They're like, when you are in, this, if your birthday's in this year, that's when you could go to school.
Right. That's my whole point. It's like, imagine if you're like, well, like imagine throughout this is how absurd it is when you say it that way. It's like in school, imagine just being in school and like it being like November. It's like, well, you got promoted to the next grade, where the kid like leaves the grade and goes to the next grade. And it's like, of course that doesn't work. So it's just like, pick a date, like I think in this case, and just sort of like, and just make it all happen. Because it's, especially as you're getting older and kids, where it's like, the kid that's born in like here in the US, it's like if September's the oldest in the grade, right? That's just how it is. And then, obviously August is the youngest, right? So it's like, but it's like what, when these kids are like teenage, it's like, doesn't really matter.
And then here in Australia, because the drinking age is 18, as the 12th graders are, getting into their final year, it's like the parties keep getting better and better.
Well, that's another one that's arbitrary too. It's like, I think that's probably the best example of what a weird rule. It's like, obviously kids or anyone, right? You're going to have friends that are very close in age. The younger you are, the more true that is. Like your kids in your school will almost always be within a year, right? So it's like, it's weird in that case. It's like, well, You turned 18, so you're legally you can you go drink at the bars, and then you're just 17. And it's like, no, all these kids are obviously hanging out all the time. Like, what are we pretending, right? Let's just make it all happen on January 1. All the kids can be equally, stupid and make poor choices, but at least everybody knows. Let's get it out of the system, and then and just move on. That's my proposal. Let's move away from birth date to just be like year.
There are other hills I'm gonna go die on.
Right after we fix daylight savings time, we'll get to this problem. That'll be the next software defined talk issue. All right. Well, listen, if you're have a milestone birthday with children, hopefully this information has been useful. I would say, I have like a whole little checklist here. I didn't have a run book. I didn't have any rollback, right? I just had like stuff we had to do. So if you are, get prepared now. Get prepared. Be ready to move it over. And if you're like me, the birthday's been fantastic because I just have to do less, which is honestly, that's all I really
Which is what everybody wants. I just want to do less.
Now, speaking of some milestones, we had Microsoft Ignite this week. It was the big Microsoft conference, and it was everything you ever wanted to know about Copilot. So, Matt, I'm gonna give you.
Was it the Copilot conference?
It was. I think we should just say it. It's so it started off with the CEO coming out and giving the whole pitch. So they have a Copilot stack. And there were 5 levels of the Copilot stack that we're going to go through. And we're going to hit on the highlights of each one. But I think at the very broadest level, I guess my thought about this whole AI thing and the way that they're doing it is like, there are really 2 ways to go. There's the Copilot metaphor. And they even said in here a couple of times, it says, you heard the CEO from Microsoft say, it's like, they're the Copilot company. And I would sort of say that the vision that Microsoft is putting in there is sort of like this idea of like sustaining innovation around like, we're going to explain to you how we can help you do mostly the tasks that you do today a little bit faster, a little bit easier, and give you a little bit of help along the way. So that's sort of like one broad, and I think that's sort of the broad Microsoft vision of it. Now, I do think you could have a more disruptive vision of this and say, hey, I don't want to just like make it easier for you to do the things that you're doing today. I want to actually get rid of many of the things you have to do altogether and kind of solve the problem. So two kind of analogies I came up with. Like one example was like, don't give me Excel. I actually don't want to use Excel. I just want you to give me the answers, right? Like, of the thing that I want. Like, I just want to like, here's a bunch of data. Tell me, how we're doing this quarter. Tell me if there's any problems with the data. Tell me what you would do to improve sales, being one example, right? So that's sort of
like kill all the humans.
Right. That's like one metaphor of it. Or maybe example, I was thinking about, the idea of like a car, right? It's like in a car, like, do you want driver assist technology, which is like, hey, let me help you drive better. Let me like give you lane assist. Let me like notify you that, something bad has happened. Let me let you take action. Or do you want like kind of this other vision of like, hey, there's just a whole bunch of roving autonomous vehicles that are available on demand. We human beings no longer drive. We just get in these cars and we just tell them where we want to go. And it just all just works. Right. So I don't know, like, obviously, I think 2 things. One, it's very early in AI, so we don't really know what's going to happen. But 2, it's, if you will, more in Microsoft's interest to kind of have this Copilot thing. Right. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on like, when you think of AI, like, are you thinking sort of like this big disruptive, vision where like, no, the tasks that we do today will become unnecessary? Or are you thinking more kind of the sustaining innovation of like, no, I just want you to make me a little bit better at the tasks that I'm doing today? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the sustaining model is the thing about the sustaining model is you have to sustain the innovation, which I mean which means you at some point you're going to wake up and you'll be like, I don't drive my car anymore, right?
Right.
And so that's the natural place to start. So I don't really which also means like as people get more accustomed to the capabilities here and learn to work around the limitations, it'll just keep getting better. So I guess I'm a fan of the sustainability model or sustaining model because it gives people a better chance to acclimate, which means, of course, that there are going to be people who miss the opportunity to acclimate, which is kind of like this whole AI thing right now. It's like, if you're not paying attention and you wake up next year or something, you're not going to realize how much has already changed. And so I'm thinking about like folks like, my parents or something, where, and it's always 3 years away. But when self-driving cars are actually a thing, right? They're gonna be like, look, Dad, you don't have to drive anymore, and he's gonna be like, what? Because I mean, he still resists like electric cars, and he's always like, no, I can't trust them. Gotta I need a gas station. I need all the things that he's always been used to. And he's like, well, maybe hydrogen work because it works like a gas station. Like, screw that, right? We're going straight to electric cars, autonomous. I don't want any of that stuff. And he's like, well, um, he's gonna wake up and everything's gonna have changed. Is kind of my point. So I think for some people, it's going to seem like a sustaining model, and others are going to be on the receiving end of a sea change.
Yeah, and I think, from the purposes of all of these companies announcing different things, it's like it definitely, I think as I read more about AI and you think about these competing visions, it's almost like you got to think about, is this an incumbent or a brand new company, kind of a startup, and like what's the level of disruption they're trying to drive? I think in the case of Microsoft, like, because as we kind of go through some of this, like so many of these like slides, even this sort of like 5 levels of Copilot, like you could have just said this was like 3. I mean, they have used this model so many different times, right? Like the 5 levels of building a Windows application, or the 5, it's just like so many things that they've done, and they're kind of just slotting it in. And so that's sort of, if you will, it's sort of an artificial, if you will, way of kind of closing out off their vision a little bit, right? Because they're just going to they're like, oh, I've seen this
They
before.
also don't have to disrupt the way they've done things, right?
Right.
They can get their user base acclimated to it with, they're like, oh, well, Microsoft slowly is rolling these things out, and oh, like, Clippy is 90% better now, that kind of stuff. And you're just like, okay, I'm used to it. And as opposed to some startup you've never heard of who's like, spreadsheets are done, it's all voice interface, and you're like, what?
Well, the one that really like what resonated with me, and I think this is like a really telling way Microsoft thinks about it, is like there's this example in the keynote where the woman says like, well, say for example, you're putting through assembling some slides for a QBR and you don't have the data. Let me show you how to create your own little small language model and add data to it. And because it's on someone else's desk, and it'll go get it. And so she does that, and then the data, and then voila, the data is ready. And then she pulls the data out, and then she puts it into like a slide. And I'm like, I've done it a million times myself. It is a use case. Sure, if that was easier, but like someone else walking in is like, hey, I like a very like, to your point earlier about like a disruptive way to be like, there's no reason to do a QBR. The reason to do a QBR, right, is that like it takes time, and you get all the data once a quarter, and you bring everyone together, and you're kind of trying to talk about like addressing business problems, like what isn't going well. And they would say like, here's a QBR that anyone can do anytime they want on their own. Like the CEO or the business line manager just gets in there like, how's the business doing? What are the key stats? What isn't working, right? And you just like type it in, and it just happens. And it's like, what are we trying to do, right? And I think this is like, that's kind of the more interesting part of AI, is like what is really being disrupted and what is going to still be around. So you kind of have to think of that today. So as we go through the 5 levels of the Copilot stack, I think just putting the Microsoft lens on it, it's like, no, all of this is mostly sustaining. I think we'll have to go find some crazy venture capitalists, VC-backed companies that are just like, like here's, it's like kind of like the person, the Uber thing. It's like, there will be no cars of the future. There will only be cars of service. Like that's not in this keynote. That's like,
and they don't want that model. They need something that they can ease their massive user base into, which is, they don't have to work.
Sense, right? Which has made them tons of money, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. So of course, if you have 5 layers or a stack of 5, what do? You always start with the infrastructure, the bread and butter. So this part was honestly kind of boring, but I'll try to read through. One, they gave the standard pitch where they say they're on their way to being using 100% renewable energy. At this point, every large company is doing this. So it's just like, it's great. I mean, I'm not against it, of course, but you're just like, okay, roll the quick video of like all the people and the solar panels working and stuff like that. So like fantastic. The other thing they talked about now, they announced basically 3 new processors. And these, as far as I can tell, they're all basically, you know, and they made a big deal about this being, I think, Microsoft's first time about making their own processors. So there's the Azure Cobalt, which is an ARM-based processor tailored to run general purpose compute workloads on Microsoft Cloud. So I think this is like their Graviton, right? Like this is like
Yeah,
Amazon has
absolutely.
Graviton, and
I
then I
mean,
forget the name of the Google one. Google has theirs, right? Like,
I thought I see that's what's interesting
do
is
they
I
not have
thought
theirs?
like
Did I make that
I
up?
well, I know they have their own custom silicon for like GP for AI, you know, for TensorFlow and stuff like that.
But maybe,
Um
maybe not for the general purpose processor.
yeah, I
Mm.
thought that everyone except AWS was licensing from Ampere, but you know, so obviously this is going to disrupt their Ampere relationship, because it says it's, you know, they've gone straight to ARM rather than you know, continue to use somebody else's processor. But
Well, he was very proud. Satya Nadella, you know, he came up and he had like he held up the processor
a
itself.
big
And I was
chip,
like,
yeah,
I was like, wonder if there was. I was like, I wonder if that's just the case. Like, was that just the packaging or was it actually the chip inside? I don't know. Who's to tell? So there was that one, the Cobalt. Then there was Azure Maya, which they refer to as their AI accelerator,
okay,
optimized for artificial intelligence, task, and generative AI. Now they didn't say GPU, and I guess technically these chips aren't the GPU, but like I thought this was like their attempt behind the scenes. This is like a GPU like chip, is my guess, right? Is that
yeah,
like, you know, it's
that's
basically,
what it sounds like to me. Yeah.
yeah. So they did that one, and again, he held up the chip as well. Again, I don't know if it was really just whatever. And
It's the same chip, he just
it's
changed
like I
hands.
don't know. It could be anything, right? So it's like okay. And then they had Azure Boost, and this is a system that makes the storage and networking faster by taking those processes off the host service servers and putting it onto purpose-built hardware and software. So it's like, you know, kind of have their own stack there, right? And it's like, you know, it all made sense. It's like good. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not, you know, it's just like hard to react to it in the sense of like, this all makes sense. This seems a lot like what Amazon has done and Google have done. So it feels more like they're getting to parity. Now, they did mention that they had built the fastest, I think Cobalt was like the fastest, you know, one ever built or something like that. And
Yeah,
it's
for
like,
now. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I don't know. You know, I'm not reading the Geekbench metrics for any of this stuff. I have no idea. Like I'm just
Well,
willing.
you know, Cote will be excited.
Yeah, yeah. I just all I can do is like take the all of take their word for it, if you will. And now
Yeah,
they
yeah.
also, now this is something that really got into the weeds, but it made the keynote. They showed, so they had this whole rack, right? And then they said they invented this thing called the Sidekick, which is this giant like cooling mechanism that you put on the side of the
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
rack. And they said it's like a car radiator, and it has like, if you will, it's liquid cooling, so it's cycling liquid throughout the, if you will, the rack and the chips to keep the heat down. And so they made a big deal out of it, and it just looks like this giant, you know, fan
Well, it's
radiator
just, yeah,
thing.
it's just a water cooler.
You know
Yeah.
who I wanted to, and I hope the team from Oxide dives into this, because I don't know, like if you're really hardcore into chips, like the guys from Oxide or the whole team in Oxide, they will talk about fans for like an
Oh,
hour.
yeah.
They are
Yeah.
so into these fans. So I don't know. I was like, wow. I was like, the Oxide team, they may have some competition for talking about cooling. So all of this, if you will, was part of their whole idea of silicon diversity, right? So they basically want to have, you know, a bunch of different chips for different uses. They mentioned AMD and Intel, and then of course, the busiest keynoter of them all, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, was on stage again. So I have now seen him at the VMware event, the Google event. This week was Ignite. And I would bet every dollar I had that he will show up at AWS reInvent in 2.5 weeks. So he came up, and it's like he wears exactly the same thing. He has the black T-shirt and
Uniform. Yeah.
the leather jacket, which I'm for. But it's like literally you could just cut and paste him from any one of these and put him in
Well,
there.
are you sure he was there and not just like AI generated?
That's what I was wondering. He's like, because he just gets up and he's always like, I'm so excited to be here today. We've been great partners forever. Like he literally, if you just like took out the names, he just says the same thing. He's
Oh, that's what we need
is
is to find transcripts of each appearance and see if he's just like, you know, mad libbing his keynotes.
I mean, probably. And it's like, it just, again, it's like, this won't last forever. The whole NVIDIA thing. Like, I don't know when it will crest, but I'm like, no one, I mean, they are the definitive. I mean, this has been said a million times. He, not just the company, he is the winner of AI. Like no person has made more money from AI than him. It has to be like tens of billions of dollars at this point.
Right,
I
right.
mean, it's just insane. So, so I look forward to seeing him talk again at the AWS reInvent where he says the same thing. All right, so all of that is the AI infrastructure. I don't know. It's like the announcements were fine. It seemed mostly like parody. I was thinking mostly of AWS with AWS there, but they seemed extremely excited about these chips. And even like you and I like chips, but even I was like, okay, well, sounds good. Like, I don't know. But I was going to ask you because you spent some time on the cost side. Like, I don't know. Will this make its way into like your cost models? Maybe that's the people who should be excited. It's like, whoa, these chips are going to be a lot less expensive to run workloads. Is that like,
Oh yeah.
are you seeing that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the space. It's one of the easier recommendations to make if your workloads are portable. Is like, well, of course of course you're going to switch to ARM. It's just a substantial savings if you can do it, right? And that's the sort of savings you can get without like any sort of negotiations. You don't have to say like, oh, as
Right. You just move the
sustained usage
workload. Yeah.
discounts, reserved instances. Like, no, we just changed to cheaper stuff. Um, you know, alternatively, you can save a little bit of money just switching to AMD usually. But that's over on the side, you can save more going straight to ARM. So if you can, do it.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. So maybe in the end, the people who should be excited is like, hey, if you're just using a bunch of these and you want to reduce costs, then they'll be
That's the
available soon
easiest.
enough. All right, so that's all the infrastructure side. Then we moved on to foundation models. Now, the short answer here is the Azure artificial intelligence is basically just getting everything that OpenAI announced. So that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? They're partners. So it was just like, I mean, they went through a lot of it, but it was just sort of like if OpenAI announced it, it is now available in Azure AI, which, okay, makes sense. Then there was a ton of talk about small language models or SLMs, right? So I don't know. This is back to what do you want from your AI? Like, what do I want is I just want like the AI to just like know what I want and just figure it all out. Like, I'm not really that interested in like
Yeah,
making
that's
my own like small language model, but they went through in detail about how you could, basically, make these small language models that are really focused in on like one domain or one little problem area. And then you could
what you
use
need
them
is
all over. Mhm.
what you need is like something that just mines all your company's internal emails and Google Docs and or your Office 365, your SharePoint, and just slurps all that in. So then it becomes like the person who knows, the person who can search your Google Docs.
Yeah, they basically have that, right? They talk
Yeah,
about like introducing, and it's like I get it, right? And that's fine, but it's sort of like I don't know. This is kind of back to like kind of the first part of our conversation is like what is the metaphor you want? Like they're sort of like, oh, it's like you can create as much as you want, or like you can just figure it out because it will do all the stuff in your enterprise. And I'm sort of like, I don't want to do this work. Like I just want the AI to go, or I just want it to be real simple. I just want to tell the AI, be like, yeah, like I work here, get all the stuff I have, and then like just work. Like I don't want to like, I don't know, I don't want to have to like build and train my own model. I just feels like that idea is like
yeah,
make it
but
simple to me.
if you want, I mean, the stuff you do is niche to your company, and there's no way they can give you a general purpose AI that's going to be. It might be passable, but it still seems like training it up on your specific data has got to have a lot of value.
No, I think it does, but I kind of just want the AI. Like I think of sort of like I want the
You
AI
want
to
the
figure
AI to
this
train
out.
itself?
I want it to figure it out. It's like, listen, this is who I am.
Look,
This is my
that's
stuff. I don't want to have to think about because this is where, and I don't know. Listen, I don't really know what's possible, and I guess and I don't think anybody does. But I think this is the idea that like it is one way to criticize this would be like it is sort of like the old way of thinking. It's like, oh, well, like I have to like create a model and I have to like give it information. And I have to train, I have to do this work. And I think there is another school of thought is like, no, 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 no. Like these things are going to get so smart that like you don't have to spend a lot of time doing that. You have to just be like,
I,
yeah,
I
here's all the stuff, figure it out.
I'm pretty sure that was like Cyberdyne's business model, and it didn't really turn out that well.
Well, I don't know. Well, if that's not going to work out, if like my pie in the sky, like you just figured out AI isn't going to work, well, don't worry. there are lots of ways to create small language models. And then they also said, this was always, it's every time I hear these kind of quotes from Microsoft executives, it is a little shocking. I mean, maybe it's just because we've been doing this for a while, but it was, quote, they are all in on open source models. So basically they have this idea of like, all the foundation models are going to be available. They mentioned like pretty much all of them. Like, what's the one from Facebook, or not Facebook, Meta? It was like
Llama.
Llama 2. And
Yeah, yeah.
they just went through and were like, I mean, for me, I was just like listening to it. I'm like, it sounds like every model that's publicly available will eventually is either in or will be available in my, and again, like I get it, that seems cool, I guess that's good, but I'm sort of like, I don't really want to have to pick out these models.
I don't want to pick. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I just want like one model to like know all the models and just like,
Oh
look.
yeah. I mean, when I see people, who are neck deep in the space and they're trying to make recommendations, I'm just like, I no, I don't want that. There's too many choices, for you to tell me like, well, if you're doing medical stuff, you want to use that. If you're doing, number analytics, you want to use this, and you need this plugin to go with that. I mean, that's why I think like OpenAI is really onto something with their Chat GPT marketplace, where it's just like, look, I don't want to go anywhere else. Just tell me like, I'm going to be doing some Excel. What you got for me? It's like, boom, here it is. And, and if Microsoft bundles that up, I mean, the whole point of AI is laziness, right?
Well, you know what? Well said. Well said. And that's going to be the title of this episode. Absolutely fantastic. But I do think, and what you're kind of getting at is like, in systems management, to use like a bad metaphor, there are the old managers of managers, right? It's like, yeah, I need a console. And then everyone's going to feed this other console. And it's just like, yeah, that's kind of what we need here. Like a models for all the models. It's like, I don't know. Like, all of you AI people, just figure it out. Like, have the AI figure out which one of these models to use and just like do it. Like, I don't want it. But don't worry, if you're not, like, if you are a person that wants to know about the models, because they mentioned this like models as a service. So basically you're going to be able to go in there and just use any of the models. So good for you. So that seemed good. So it seemed like, yeah, all right, every model that you possibly want will be there. And I felt like, again, can't remember. I start to confuse all the keynotes after watching them, but I felt like I think Google said something similar. I feel like
that's not Brandon. You were our keynote correspondent.
I know.
You are a man.
I'm going to create a keynote Chat GPT. That's what I'm going to create, because I can't always remember like who announced what.
It'll go well with the Mad Libs. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Google announced something similar. So that seemed cool, seemed important, but also seemed like everyone else had it. Then they went into the data. So this is the third level up. Now we're into to what you're talking about, Matt. It's like you get the model, and then you put your data in the right area, and they're largely just calling this Fabric. Lots of details on this. This is, I sort of kind of, honestly, this area wasn't as interesting to me, so I kind of zoned out a little bit. But it was just like, yeah, get all your data in Fabric, which is some massive data warehouse and can like accept data from all kinds of stuff. Again, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the AWS stuff. But if you get all your data in there, then you can use any of the foundation models on your data. Then they were like, everyone that works on this, they went to painstakingly lengths of a conversation to explain that like that it will be private, and they won't be looking at the data, and all the security and privacy concerns will be taken care of. I mean, again, you just have to take their word for it. Like, I don't know, other than testing it. You're just
that's the other like leg of AI is you just got to take their word for it, right?
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
okay,
sounds good.
Sounds good. But so much of the human experience is that, right? I mean, I don't want to get all meta on you, but it's like people are like, oh, you can't trust the output of AI. It hallucinates. I'm like, so do people.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And like all these things, it's sort of like as they're kind of building up, right? Like, so we went over the infrastructure. You got all these new computers to run it on. Then you're like, okay, you got every model you ever want. And then like, yeah, you can put all your data in here and we'll keep it safe. And you're just like, okay, sounds good, right? And then from there, and this is the part, like, I don't know, this whole next area was a little confusing to me. They call it AI orchestration, and it's like some combination of like writing prompts better, getting data in and out of the models and figuring out what you want to do. But this orchestration layer sort of sits right below the apps. But it was like, I don't know. Part of me was just like, I think this is just like an API. Like, this seems just like some kind of API.
Yeah.
then they sort of like, I don't know, they made it sound so big. And I was like, maybe I just missed it. I didn't really understand what they're doing. So that part, like, I don't know, really AI orchestration. I'm going to leave that to the listeners. You're going to have to do your own homework there. I didn't really get that much out of it. Now apps. Now we got to Teams. Now I started perking up. Oh, Microsoft Teams. One thing I learned.
They perked up and turned it off.
I did. I was like, oh, this is interesting because I use Teams every day. So one factoid they threw out: 320 million people use Teams every day. I was like, wow, that's like, I was pretty shocked by that. So that's, I think, more than Twitter, which is a social network. And then I don't know, but again, of course, part of me is always like, well, I wonder what they're counting, though. Like, how many, like, does everyone that ever logged into Teams, one time, or are there 320 million people? But I was like, it makes sense. It seems significantly more than Slack to me. Is that fair, or is that? Do you think Slack has a lot less?
I would expect at this point that there are more Teams users, just because it's Microsoft, right?
Now let me qualify you. You don't use Teams. You have never.
I have never had to use it as a day-to-day employee. I've definitely got Teams installed, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Right. So you're probably in that number. Like, you don't really, you just use it when
because I think, right? My daughter's school doesn't use Slack for public presentations. They use Teams.
Okay.
And so, it just kind of, but also, do I also count as a WebEx user? Do I also count as a I had Chime installed. I don't know if it's currently installed.
Yeah, we all have Chime. Like, if you
I collect them all, man.
So maybe we're in there. Maybe it's just the same 100 million people all being counted.
Half the 100 million. The Venn diagram of the users are like,
because you probably got 2 or 3 accounts. Like, you got a personal account for like the school one, and then you got your work account. So like, we're all in there. So I don't know. Still, though, I was like, wow, Microsoft. They know how to do it, though. They whether you want to call it like great growth marketing or forced adoption, I don't know. You decide. It seems like it's impressive. Now, they said in Teams there are 2,000 Teams apps. So I don't know, Matt. This is like next level Teams. I don't know if you've ever done it, but if you go into Teams, there's a whole apps section. Have you ever done it? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
No idea.
Okay,
but I believe you. I believe you. Yes.
In the sidebar, there are all these apps. Now, I use it and I have access to lots of these apps. I think to date, I've installed like 2 and hated them both. So I don't know. Maybe out of the 2,000, there's like some really good ones, but like, I have never seen anything inside the Teams app store that I found useful. Which, again, that's just a sample size.
Which is the opposite of Slack, right? I think there's a ton of interesting stuff in the Slack plugins.
True.
I mean, we use a couple, in SDT Slack.
Well, it's funny. It's not only that. It's like we would use more, but we're on the free plan, and they only have they only let us use so many. So it's true. There's a bunch in Slack we would like.
You know what? We should turn off the Twitter one.
Yeah, that one. You know what? We would reclaim a license. We would get another. That would be pretty cool. A good idea, Matt. Action item for us. We'll get.
Take a note on your Newton.
So there was 2,000 of those, and then there was, I guess, what they call another 140,000 line of business apps and Teams, which I just took that to mean like some company created a little Teams app and that it's just for their company and it does something specific. And it's like, sure, right?
Sure.
Like, that's sort of edges up on like how many custom shell scripts does a company have?
I mean, if they're smart, their hello world for app writing is like something you hook up to your company's Salesforce. So, it rings a bell, and you don't call the Salesforce one. You show everyone how to write their own. And so like literally, like it just pumps those numbers. Cause I mean, I'm every place that I've been with Slack has had like a sales channel that, rings a bell when a deal is closed. And it's like, that's probably not hard to write. And it's a good way to pump your numbers. So
sure. Why not? Right.
So, if your OKR is, getting people to write plugins for your platform.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though. Like Teams is so different. The chat experience or the messaging experience is so different in Teams. It just doesn't like proliferate like it does in Slack, where there's like a Slack channel for everything. I don't know. I guess my corporate use of Teams is like, it just doesn't like do it. Maybe other people are doing it. So, but okay, up to now, good stuff. Like just kind of interesting stuff. I think, pretty much all the kinds of things we would expect for it. Then they talked about this mesh product. Whoa, I don't know if you've seen this, Matt. This is the Second Life looking product where it's sort of like we're back to people walking around with avatars with no legs, and they're like, and
Hey,
they're
whoa,
in
whoa,
these
whoa! Second Life
weird.
had legs. The
Like, I
Meta's
don't know
version
what's
didn't
up
have
because
legs.
Facebook didn't have, and their Meta
No,
thing.
no, they just
I
couldn't
guess
figure out how to render them.
legs are just like the difficult thing. So like I don't know, like I
Legs are
don't know
not
why we keep returning to this metaphor. It is so I guess somebody, it's like, if I don't know, it must be a quest. Somebody must have some information that says like, if we solve this, we'll make hundreds of $1 billion. But every time I see it, because they showed like some videos, and you're like, I definitely don't want to use this. I never
No,
want to have
no.
to be
I
walking
there
around.
was. I think
I
it
mean,
might have been in last week or the week before's show notes, an article someone shared that we didn't talk about, but essentially the gist of it was like all of these metaverse projects are going to fail because they're not fun. Nobody looks at that and is like, that's how I wish I was interacting, right? The ones that work are gaming, right? Because people are like, oh, I'm off on this, battle royale island playing Fortnite, right? It's, it starts to like bleed into a VR experience, whereas like, oh look, I'm 3D rendered sitting in a meeting. I was like, who wants that?
yeah, I think, I had the same thought, and I even thought of the same article when you were saying that. And so I totally agree with you. It's just like, it seems like it's just broken. Like and I think maybe that article distills it down to many people in Silicon Valley or VC backed companies are about productivity. And like when you apply like the
Yeah,
productivity gain to this idea, it just doesn't work. It
it's
just
not fun.
absolutely
It's not
does
more
not work.
productive. It's just
And you can see in the meetings where someone's like, let's just do this because it's fun. That person gets kicked out of the meeting. They're like, we just,
the way you
we
make it
don't need
fun
you.
is everyone has to have like, what was it? The lawyer who was turned into a cat. Like that's how you make it
Yeah.
fun. Is you can't opt out of that. Everyone gets turned into a barnyard animal.
Yeah. And I think, even the
I'd
premise
go to
of like,
that meeting.
we can all like, maybe that's the whole premise is maybe flawed at the beginning. It's like, no, this is a way that we can all not be together, and we can meet, and we can somehow accomplish some goals. And it's like, no, the whole idea of that is just wrong. It's like, if you really need to be together, and this is the other part with so much talk about work from home and then return to office, you're like, it doesn't even seem to pass the test of the corporations building it, where it's like, no, most of these companies want people to come back in the office. And if you say I'm going to log in once a day to the virtual, in this case, metaverse, like Facebook isn't, they want you back in the office. And I don't know what's going on at Microsoft, but like, I think they generally want people back in the office. Like no one thinks it's the substitute. So it's like, it just feels like that's what would kill the project immediately. If that doesn't count, like quote, return to office, then why are we building this mesh thing? So I
Right.
don't know. I was real. I was like, I just feel like I think
Perpetually down on it.
was Second Life the first one, or is that just the one that we got exposure?
That's the
Maybe,
one that was most prominent. Undoubtedly, there were others that Second Life at least like had had legs.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I
it,
don't know.
it had a sustained user base.
All right. Well, the final thing then, Mesh, again, good luck with Mesh. Now, the final thing is we finally got to the top of the stack. The top of the stack is basically what they call the Copilot. It's basically it's the Copilot Studio. It's Microsoft's Copilot, and then it's quote unquote your Copilot. So a couple cool stats they talked about was they're saying you can code 55 times faster. I don't know. It seemed like a lot, but then I do think the idea of like, writing source code and coding in general has like forever changed. And then, I mean, 55 times faster seems like a lot, but honestly, maybe it's 100% true, because I know, especially like in my limited use of this, I'm like, yeah, it does make me a million times faster. And so then they showed all the other things that I think are right in the wheelhouse. They showed you like how it will be embedded in Excel, right? Basically, it will write the formulas for you. It will actually, and then they even mentioned, one of my little pet projects, they have Excel with Python. So we'll basically write the Python code for you. It will do all of the data frame stuff for you. It would have edit with you in Word. And like, so this seems like this is like what Microsoft was built for, right?
Yeah.
But, this is really, if you will, it's Clippy come to life. It's like, yeah, this is probably what Clippy was supposed to do, instead of like running around that stupid animation, it's supposed to do stuff for you. And it was like, yeah, I was like, man, put this stuff everywhere. And this is what drove home to me, like, this is sustaining innovation that Microsoft wants, because you can easily make a case, an ROI case, that you will pay more for all of these things. For it, in every single Microsoft product, you would like to have a little Copilot that makes the task easier. So to me, it's like, it's almost the 4 layers we're just leading to this. And this is where I think Microsoft's about to make, another tens of billions of dollars, unless somebody, and kind of back to our original conversation, unless someone figures out a way, it's like, oh, actually, you don't even need to be in Word, Excel, or any of these tools anymore. We can just do all of that work for you. Remember all the tasks that you were trying to accomplish in there? You don't need to do those things. So that's maybe the biggest competing vision going forward, is like, Microsoft's going to make it real easy for us to do all of the stuff we were doing in their programs a little bit easier and a little bit faster. And they even kind of had a nice quote in there, something about like, just taking I think I can't remember something, just like taking the drudgery out of work. Right. And I think that's kind of their idea of just like, this is get rid of all this stuff that's kind of annoying you. Whereas I think there's going to be other visions where it's like, no, you don't have to do any of this going forward. But the Copilot stuff I thought was pretty cool. I mean, this is the part, like, I'm ready. Like they said, I don't know when my organization's going to upgrade, but I'm definitely like, yeah, I was actually like excited for that part. I want it easier. I don't want to have to cut and paste between OpenAI and the actual programs anymore. I just want it all built in. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Copilot?
You know, I've used I've dabbled a bit. I'm excited about it. My company doesn't want to pay for it, so that's the current state of things for me. But no, I think Microsoft's on to their next big thing.
Well, your company is going to be a real interesting use case, because obviously you guys are thinking about cost all the time. So at some point, does it become, if you will, an ROI investment that's impressive to like your CFO or like things like that? Because that would be kind of it's like a good test case, right?
It's actually because we're small enough that they're like, just expense it yourself, and
right?
It's cheaper, right? We don't need an enterprise version. So yeah, we're still a scrappy startup that deals through Expensify.
All right. Well, that's pretty much the recap of all the important things. Like, now you've seen it. You've known everything about the over 100+ announcements they're making. So, you don't even have to watch the thing. No, of course, there's like tons of other stuff.
I'm looking forward to it again at reInvent.
That's right. So my thing is, like, I would just summarize the whole thing this way. They're definitely focused on the sustaining vision. I think the top of the stack, the Copilot stuff, we will all probably like, because we all have to do some of this stuff. And everything else in between, it's probably necessary, or no, it is actually necessary, but none of it struck out to me as like incredibly, if you will, differentiated, because I think we're going to see a lot of that with AWS. Now, speaking of differentiation, though, Matt, you did have a little announcement here with Azure. So why don't you tell us what OpenCost is doing with Microsoft?
Yeah. Microsoft announced that they are embedding OpenCost, the open source project that I'm a community manage, and they're embedding it in their Azure Cost Analytics, their AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service Cost Analytics dashboard. So before this, when you clicked on your AKS bill, it's like, that'll be $10, please. And now you can click on it and see your $10 split by, namespace, by pods, by containers, any way you want to slice and dice it is now available to you. So didn't get the same keynote time as Copilot, but exciting to me.
And there's some links in here where you can read about it. I don't know. Did you get a session? Are you even in?
No. We got a blog post on some developer blog. Or some Microsoft developer blog, and then they also made an announcement around FinOps that they are going to start natively exporting Focus, which is the FinOps open cost and usage specification. So that's a standardized industry standard billing format that again, how did that not make the keynote? I don't know, but you can't put everything in there. So
I will say that, I was off in another Slack this week. I think I was in the CNCF, and people were asking about OpenCost. So I think, you're sort of like, I don't know.
We're riding the wave. Yeah.
You're kind of in the focal point, though. I think everybody's sort of like, what I'd like to see? I'd like to see all this cost information in a well-known, well-understood format, which is like, what I did? I just did, and Matt Ray will really appreciate this. It's like, what I did? I saw that comment, and so I just literally tagged Matt Ray and put an arrow.
Yes.
There's nothing better than just assigning work with no context to someone. Be like, I don't know any of the answers, but like, this guy does. And he's
story of my life. Yeah.
So that's right. So, well, good, Matt. We'll look for OpenCost. We'll look for the OpenCost AWS announcement. I know there's probably nothing happening, or you can't talk about it. So, we'll just wait. If something happening, don't say anything about it now, Matt. I don't want to get you in trouble. Uh,
I'll probably know like right before it happens.
That's right. More importantly, like you'll get the email. Like I'll like I like to say, it's like, yeah, I heard it on the earnings call, just like you. I didn't know either. So that's always good. All right. Well, listen, that's the wrap up of everything that happened at Azure. Hopefully that was helpful to you. I did want to couple shout outs to a couple of listeners. So one thing that came in last week was Ilya recommends taking a look at Facets. And so that is basically a platform that helps you build platform engineering. So he heard you talk about, Matt, last week. You said something like, it's always like internal
Backstage is
development.
kind of snowflakey.
Yeah, internal development platforms are always going to need to be internal and custom, right? So facets.cloud is the name of it. They provide a framework for building platform engineering and accelerating application development. So I don't know. So I
Is
don't.
it
It's kind of
Backstage
interesting.
or yeah?
It
No, I mean they're definitely people tilting at those windmills, right?
Yes, I think your point, like I thought it was real interesting about how Ilya in this case was like very specific. It's like, yep, I've heard this problem a billion times. And in fact, there's a whole people that are just building a way to build them, which I think is interesting. So I don't know. I'd be interested if anyone's using Facets.cloud or some other framework, because maybe that's the best you can do. If you're gonna have to build it, maybe you can just build it using common tools, maybe not. So hit us up in the Software Defined Talk Slack. Let us know if that's something that's actually being used. Or is it just like all software? Hey, in the end, it's just better. You just write it all yourself. Who knows? I don't know. Also, we talked a little bit last week about RAM, just 8 gigs enough. So there was, I think Jordy put this in there. He put in a nice link to somebody did figure it out, ran a bunch of tests, and they basically, shocking to find out, actually, yeah, you do need more RAM. More RAM is better. So nothing has necessarily changed there. Like shocking. We didn't know that. And then, of course, on the listener side, if you would like a sticker, just send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. As far as conferences, sort of the year winding down. So the only one today I was going to mention is on January 29th, our friends over at the DAT conference. They're going to be coming to Texas. So you can come down here, and they have a code this week. So you can use the code here in the show notes, and you get $300 off a professional ticket as long as you do it before November 27th, which I think is Black Friday. So yeah, if you want to come down and you want to use this code, check it out. And if you want us to talk about your conference, send us an email. Let us know what it is. We can probably work out some type of very informal media partnership or find some way to work together, as always.
And
now
it sounds
finally,
well, I was going to say real quick, our Meetups IRL channel, sounds like some folks are going to be at reInvent who are, making plans to either, meet up for a drink or two or, say hi. So
absolutely,
definitely
really
join the channel.
Join the Software Defined Talk Slack and get in the meetups that you're IRL. And yes, there are going to be many people, it sounds like, in reInvent. Maybe Jordy, maybe you'll find him. He sounds like he's really ready to buy everyone a beer. So go find him and tell him Software Defined Talk sent you. All right. Well, listen, I don't want to belabor the point. This is what people came for. We've been talking about it for weeks. Matt Ray has done a rigorous analysis of what keyboard he will be getting. So, Matt, without further ado, please reveal your keyboard pick.
I have chosen and acquired the Keychron Q10 with the Alice layout. It's so the Alice layout is their ergonomic style, split. It's a single heavy keyboard. I believe it weighs 6 pounds, something like that. So it's made out of a big block of aluminum or something, but it's a pretty solid piece. I told my son that when I die, he can have it. So it's a family heirloom in the making. But yeah, so I got it.
Is that like better, or is it just
it's just solid. Like, I mean, they're not skimping on any of the materials. So it's got,
good build quality.
If you follow the link in the show notes to it, they have like of course you can buy a kit and build it yourself. And like there are people who are, oh, I took this layer out of the inners to, make it springier. I replaced it with, it was, this piece was made out of foam and I replaced it with metal. So my keyboard, is even louder. So it's definitely a hacker's keyboard, people who want to hack on keyboards. And, you can choose the switches, you can choose the colors.
Tell us which switches did you get here? How do you say that? Gateron Pro?
I don't know how to say it. Gateron.
Uh-huh.
That's what I got. I got the Gateron G Pro switches, um, which I think they're brown switches. Is that what they're called? Yeah. So the ones I got are considered tactile, but not clicky. So, but I didn't want the smooth or linear, which is like what you have on like an Apple keyboard, at least on your
Okay.
laptop. I wanted something a little more with a little more push to it. I'm pretty happy with that. I didn't really know what I was purchasing. I know it, it came with 3 default choices. You can build your own and get whatever ones you want. They sell, I want to say like 20 different switches. So God bless you if you have time to do all that. But probably at some point I'll be like, I should upgrade to whatever. But I didn't really know what I was getting, but I feel pretty happy with what I got.
All right. And so how long have you been using it for? Like a week?
I got it. Yeah, I mean, I got back from KubeCon Sunday, and I set it up on Monday, and took a photo that of my new setup. I've got a new external monitor, a second external monitor. I've got my new keyboard, so had to rewire everything. Definitely wasted some time, getting my workspace set up as just as I like. But that's what you got to do.
That's right. All right. Well, there's also I'll make that picture of the show art so you can see Matt Ray set up. He also has the fancy wooden palm rest that looks heavy as well. And for those that don't follow the show quite as closely, remember Matt Ray is a trackball user. So I think the setup is going to basically only be useful for Matt Ray. Like if I sat down and you
well,
asked
that's fine for me because I'm Matt Ray.
I was gonna say it's for you. I was gonna say if the average person sat down and was asked to type 1,000 word essay on this, it would probably take a long time. It definitely has some hardcore customization. All right, well, listen, you guys. All I'd say is you better order yours fast because now it has this is like a wire cutter recommendation. Now that it's out there, it could sell out overnight. So I don't know.
Occasionally they did, while I was going through
quick.
their products, there were some that were sold out, but I mean, they even like you could choose like what keys styles you want. How many keys do you want? Do you want macro keys? Mine's got a volume knob that is, it's completely reprogrammable, which is kind of cool. It's got a web-based key mapper, which is kind of odd, but yeah, I mean, I've reprogrammed some of my keys already. I've got some macros. It's exciting.
Well, I like the volume knob. That's like, that's a problem that's been solved. No one try to mess with volume. Like a knob is best for volume. So that was the one thing I saw.
I played with the knob a bit. I was like, well, maybe I'll use this for like scrolling because my trackball that you mentioned has a scroll wheel around the ball. So you just rotate your hand while you're on it, and so it just scrolls up and down naturally, which is it's really nice. But I was thinking, well, now I could have a scroll wheel on the left, but it's I already got a better wheel. So
yeah. All right. Well, the Matt Ray. All right. Well, congratulations, Matt Ray, and be careful with the orange juice. I see in the picture your water is actually pretty close to the keyboard, so watch out. Don't spill again. So, all right, my recommendation much simpler. I watched The Killer on Netflix. This is the new David Fincher movie. So it's like David Fincher. If you know, you know. It's like you either like him and like his movies. There you go. Maker of like 7, like I don't know, tons of what I would consider really good movies. I thought this was like, it's kind of a weird way to say this. It's like I thought this was a very, very good Netflix movie. I was like, oh, this is like a real movie on Netflix. How fantastic!
That's where it is. It's
right?
on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. So it's just like, I don't know, like if you went to a theater, I was like, but like, oh, this is actually a real movie that isn't dubbed, doesn't have some like, weird effects, but no plot, like all the Netflix movies, whatever. This was actually like a real movie. So I enjoyed that. It's almost like, oh, this is why we pay for Netflix. Sometimes I forget. I'm always like, there's nothing on. And then this shows up. I'm like, this is actually pretty good. So if you like David Fincher, or if you like movies that are just good, that are well made, unlike most of the stuff on Netflix, you should check out The Killer. All right. Well, and a quick programming note, we will have a great interview for you next week. This is the United States Thanksgiving. So for all of you who celebrate it, happy Thanksgiving. For those that don't, remember, we're here at Software Defined Talk. We're trying to export this holiday. So everyone, if you can't take off work, you should just eat a really big meal on Thursday and then just buy unnecessary stuff on Friday. If you do that, you are celebrating Thanksgiving in the way that I think it should
American
be celebrated.
style.
American style. And with that, we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
All right, Matt, good episode as always. I love, I did put the link to your keyboard in here. So I wonder how can I show, I don't know how to, I like, how big is the monitor now? That's 30, is that curved? Is it curved or am I just imagining that? What do you think? Do you like it? Is it,
yeah. No, yeah, I definitely like it. I mean, yeah, I just got a refresh of it, thanks to my warranty. So I've had it for 3 years. I'm pretty happy with it. It's a 4K. I don't actually run it at 4K because the laptop, it makes everything on the laptop seem like out of whack. Just because everything gets kind of tiny, and Apple's not great at like resizing things between two monitors.
Scaling it, right? So what are you running at? 1440?
2K. Is that 1440?
2K, yeah. So it's slightly, it's
yeah. So it's a step down, but I run it in 4K when I use Windows because I single monitor, for gaming. And it's nice. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. There's a 34. So if I, when I thought it was dying and I sent it off for a replacement, I was starting to like eyeball like, oh, maybe I'll upgrade to a 34, 44, 59. But no, it's a sizable monitor. I the only reason I got the little 15.5 external is when I want to have another dock open, and that's what I was finding myself doing a lot of like, switching back and forth and going between like the big monitor with all the focus and then having the little, having a document that I was referencing. It didn't work that great. And then the laptop over on the right, it's not great for displaying documents because it's, it's horizontal. So I wanted a vertical. And so that's my story.
All right. Well, everyone on the stream, this will be in the chapter art, so you can critique Matt Ray's. Go into the Slack and critique. Although it looks pretty clean.
Well, that's because I cleaned my desk and took a photo. It's dirty again, or not dirty, but messy.
It could be worse. All right. Well, everyone that was on, Graham, it was good to have you on. It sounds like it's, well, I guess it's actually normal time, right? Choki. So it's good to have him on. Appreciate the system guy. Thanks for coming on. Of course, Brian, always on. Really appreciate it. So yeah, we will no show next week. So I'll just again wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll stream again probably in about 2 weeks. So talk to y'all then. Take care.